All right, so here we are, we're starting our new module up, and for this one we're going to explore a little bit about biological slash biosocial theories. So when we think about like this kind of thing, you know, we have this root and maybe to like modern standards, right? More or less what this body of work tends to say is that there are biological and genetic factors that affect criminality or one's likelihood of acting deviantly or not, right? And, you know, when we think about our modern history or modern era, right, you know, I think, you know, there is in some ways where we think, you know what, maybe that makes sense, right? Like, you know, we have advances in gene research, we have advances in the study of like nutrients, access to things like, you know, like what happens when you drink lead and things like that. And, you know, to the point now when we have children, we can do genetic tests to see what diseases one's predisposed to and so on. But that wasn't always the case, right? And in some circles, you will find that people tend to react poorly to suggestions of biological and biosocial explanations for theory based off its dirty history, right? So I'll be honest, is that, you know, this is sort of, while it's crucial to understand this from a field, I'm less familiar with it than other parts, and that's mainly because it's not really emphasized in the criminological field. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, why. So when we think about biological biosocial theories, right, we know that there's some context that's coming in place. So, you know, first bit of context is that this is sort of like the first answer to deterrence theory, deterrence rational choice kind of theories about why people commit crime. You know, the big reason why, you know, this is the first response is that when deterrence theory is first introduced in like 1800s, I think that's right, whatever year I said it was, whatever year it says in your book, you know, it was sort of accepted that we can alter and change punishment. We can get people to commit crime or prevent people from committing crime by, you know, altering the certainty, celerity, and severity of punishment, right? The problem was, though, is that due to native data collection efforts, you know, there was data collection was poor. You know, when you look at like court records, right? There's no computers, there's no email. You know, every record you have to, you know, collect has to be delivered by hand. Everything has to be counted by hand. You're in a dark room with like a, you know, like candlelight, right? All your parchment could get burned, you know, from one, you know, misstep, you know, things like that. And, you know, there's no Harry Potter repair to fix this, right? So data collection's poor. And so you'll recall that one of the key criteria for theory, right, is testability and empirical validity. So what this created was that because it was extremely difficult to get data, and as well, people were not entirely sure how to look at deterrence theory, you know, it really becomes a problem then. Like, how do we get something that is going to, you know, look okay? How do we get something that is going like to look this? And so because there's no, you know, set way of collecting data and like testing these hypotheses, deterrence theory sort of falls out of favor, right? Because we can't really test it. So it falls out of favor because it's not, because there's no data, right? Which kind of sucks, right? But the thing about theories, right, is that there's always like, they're sort of like zombified in that, you know, with enough time, with enough dark magic, with enough advances in data collection and, you know, research methods, thinking and theory and things like that, all these explanations can come to life again, right? Like, so they're sort of there, and we study the past to know where we are today in the future. But just know that deterrence theories has fallen out of favor. And so, but there was this new wave then, so around this time, right, you know, we have ideas that, evolution is like this hot new idea. For those, we'll give the brief reminder, right, is that Charles Darwin says that animals evolve, select characteristics survive, we adapt, we change, we overcome, we're Bear Grylls in this shit, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to swear, just realized it, and you know what, I don't know how to edit videos, so it's going to stay in that video. So they evolve over this time, right? And what this suggests then is that there are, maybe there were inferior or species that could not adapt in some way, and that select few grow up to survive. So at the time, right, when this is coming out, like, this is like this wild idea, right? This goes against like any of church teachings. This suggests that, we could have evolved over millennia, and it really kind of captures the world, right? So, I mean, Darwin spent years and years on the HMS Beagle, going out to the Canary Islands over in Ecuador, studying, like, blue-footed boobies. That's a real bird, look it up. Studying all these animals, and comes up with this theory, right? He's got all this taxidermied stuff he takes home, and he's like looking at bird beaks and stuff. So it really catches a lot of favor. So this sparks an idea in Lombroso, right? So Cesare Lombroso, who is an Italian doctor. People always say, like, an Italian doctor, why does he have to be that way? Like, why can't we just be a doctor, right? So he's working for, like, the Italian army, and he becomes really interested in both Darwin and in, like, studying crime, right? So he gets access to, he's looking at people in the army. He's also looking at people in prison. So he gets, like, special permission, and he's like, hey, I really want to look at, prisoners. I want to see what's going on. And people are like, okay, right? So what does he end up doing, right? So he is in this, like, he's in his way, and he starts conducting, like, autopsies, right? So he comes up, and he's like, hey, is that spelled correctly? We're going to pretend it is. So he's conducting these autopsies, right? And so I want you to picture this scene, and we're going to draw it out too, just because we can with this, right? So, we're here, right? And I have a dead body here. It's orange. Why? Toes up. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Arm hanging over because you're dead. And there's a dead dude, right? Hair falling down, whatever, right? And then you have another dude, right? We have Lombroso. He's here, up here. He's got his hands, and he has this moment where he's looking at this dude's brain, right? I think he had glasses. We'll put glasses on him just because. You know why? Because it's my video, and I'm going to do whatever I want. Now it looks like a teenage mutant Ninja Turtle. So he has this moment where he's, like, looking at all these dead bodies right there. And then something happens. Something magical, the kind of thing that only happens in the shower, usually, right? It happens in this situation, right? So keep in mind that he's working in this dimly lit cadaver kind of space, working with dead bodies, that have been kind of preserved, but kind of not. It smells. He's been huffing fumes all day. He's messing with dead bodies. There's, like, some amount of decay and so on. And then something magic happens, right? It's this weird blaze, right? We have this weird, well, as he describes, blaze coming at him, right? Brighter than a California fire when the Santa Ana winds are coming up. And he finds, first of all, right, he is hit with an idea, exclamation point. He feels a little divot right here at the back of his skull, and he's like, hey, this divot equals something that you would find in a rat skull. And he says, what does this tell me? And to find out, we'll cover that in the next video.